The Front de Libération du Québec, otherwise known as the FLQ, is a terrorist group in Quebec whose idea is to use terrorism as a weapon to attain independence for Quebec. Until recently, the FLQ's goal of infusing fear in the hearts of Canadians has been accomplished through the frequent bombings of mailboxes throughout English-speaking areas of Montreal. But 11 days ago, the FLQ made their most radical move yet. On October the 5th, 1970, two men visited the home of Senior British Trade Commissioner James Cross in Montreal. The two men entered the home armed with a rifle and successfully kidnapped Mr. Cross. Hours later, a radio station received ransom demands from the kidnappers, who later identified themselves as members of the FLQ. The kidnappers threatened to kill Cross if the government failed to comply within 48 hours. The FLQ demands $500,000 in gold bars, public mention of the FLQ manifesto, a statement of their beliefs, and the release of 23 prisoners who were being held for acts of terrorism. 8 days ago, once the government's 48-hour window had concluded, the federal government refused the FLQ's demands. It is evident that the government has no intentions of surrendering to the FLQ. But only 2 days later, the FLQ responded with a move just as significant as their last. On October the 10th, the FLQ carried out their second abduction, taking hostage Labour Minister Pierre Trudeau. While tossing a football with his nephew, 4 men armed with machine guns kidnapped Trudeau from his front lawn. Since Trudeau's abduction 6 days ago, the government has stationed federal troops in Ottawa around government buildings and provided escorts for significant political figures. There is no doubt Prime Minister Trudeau is taking a bold approach to defending the FLQ. Now over to Mr. Trudeau for more on his reaction towards this crisis.
Over the past weeks, the FLQ has committed acts of terrorism in spite of threatening the unity and freedom of Canada. These deeds by the FLQ are of utmost importance, and I am determined to deal with them swiftly and effectively. Today, I want to tell you what the government is going to do to renew Canada's peaceful status. What has taken place in Montreal over the past 2 weeks is not unparalleled. We have seen various acts around the world similar to that of the FLQ's recent performances. Canadians have always believed something of this caliber can never occur on Canadian soil, making it particularly shocking. The government has taken immediate action, with federal troops taking up positions around government buildings, and we will not simply stop there. 2 men, Quebec Labour Minister Pierre Laporte and British Trade Commissioner James R. Cross, have been taken hostage by the FLQ. Upon their abduction, members of the FLQ have made demands, ransom demands, and the FLQ threatens to murder the men if the government fails to obey. We have already offered safe exit from Canada to any country of their choice in return for Mr. Laporte and Mr. Cross. By no means, though, does the government intend on surrendering to the FLQ.
Sir, Mr. Trudeau. Mr. Prime Minister, what's with the men with guns around here?
Oh, you noticed.
Yes, I noticed them. I don't know why you people choose to have them.
What makes you worried?
I am worried about living in a country with men with helmets and guns running around it. Does this not worry you?
No, it does not worry me. I think that if 2 people have been abducted and others are at risk, it is only right that people be protected against. And I can assure you that with the measures in which the government is taking, this crisis will not last long.
And what measures could resolve the situation with such effectiveness?
If a democratic society is to remain in place, it must be able to wipe out the spread of an armed revolutionary movement that is determined on destroying our unity and freedom. For that reason, and on the advice of the Quebec government and request from the City of Montreal for urgent action, the federal government has decided to proclaim the War Measures Act this morning at 4 a.m. on October 16, 1970. The War Measures Act gives extensive powers to the government in time of insurrection as well as war.
Mr. Prime Minister, what does the War Measures Act enable the government to do exactly?
The War Measures Act grants police the right to search and arrest without warrant, to suspect individuals without the requirement of laying specific charges immediately, and to detain individuals without bail.
With all due respect, sir, this contradicts the basic rights and freedom of the people.
These are immense powers, and I find them distasteful, as I'm sure you do. However, the laws in which we use on a daily basis are simply inadequate to deal with terrorism like this. It is the government's intention to revoke this decree as soon as possible.
But it seems that through the use of your army troops, you are combating the FLQ as if this was a war.
Oh, don't be silly. We're using some of the army as peacekeepers in order for the police to be able to continue their duties. The army is here to protect officials and important people of society who are at risk.
You previously stated the press has been less than responsible in this story thus far. Can you elaborate on that?
I'm advising that you just use a bit more care. The FLQ is gaining a hell of a lot of publicity for their effort. The more acknowledgement you give them, the better their victory. And I'm not interested in giving them a victory.
Mr. Prime Minister, what message do you want the FLQ to understand or hear from the government during this fragile time?
It is of utmost importance and our priority to retrieve Mr. Laporte and Mr. Cross unharmed. The government is determined on putting a halt to the FLQ's actions immediately. Regardless of the situation we have found ourselves in, we Canadians, from coast to coast, must remain united and strong. It is times like these that test our strength. And in the end, when we pull through, Canada will be better for it. The government is prepared to make severe moves in protecting the social order and freedom that we have been so fortunate to enjoy.
At any cost? How far would you go with that?
Just watch me.